Good evening, everybody. We've got quite an interesting agenda this evening. We can get through it as quickly as possible and we'll all get back to trick and treating. Okay, first, any apologies?
Chairman, I've got apologies from Councillors John Halsall and also Gregor Murray.
Thank you very much. Okay, minutes of the previous meeting. I assume you've all read the minutes. All those in favour show. Yep, I'll sign those. There we go. Okay, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest around the table? No? Okay, then we go straight into the public questions. David Davis.
Thank you, and I'm not sure with John out whether this is directed to you, Councillor Kaiser, but there's been a commitment to install CCTV in the Wokingham Town Centre to deter and catch those causing the recent rise in antisocial behaviour. Please could Leader of Council confirm when we can expect the installation of CCTV into the town centre?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm pleased to say it's not a question of when it can be expected. CCTV has already arrived in Peach Place and we'll be installing it in Elmsfield when that part of the regeneration is further developed. We're also working with Wokingham Town Centre on its aspirations to have CCTV in the marketplace, and we'll be looking at other potential locations as required. CCTV, as you probably know, is only one method in which the council is working to tackle antisocial behaviour, as we believe it's critical to address at root level, addressing it before it escalates into actual incidents. We do this in a range of ways, which are working with schools, young people, working closely in the local community and on a face-to-face basis, but also by taking an active role with groups such as the Local Community Safety Partnership, which brings together key representatives from across a wide range of bodies, including the police, probation service and public health, to address the priorities and improve multi-agency working. Do you have a supplementary question?
No, thank you, that's fine.
Thank you. The second question, Mr. Philip Meadowcroft.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman, members of the Executive. At the September 26th Executive meeting, I expressed concern about the 300 plus redactions in the Lingard report. However, I was encouraged that on October the 10th, Wokingham reinstated 11 redacted paragraphs, quotes, in the public interest, unquote. Some of these paragraphs reveal the differences of opinion between councillors and planning and legal officials, with Councillor Halsall questioning the wisdom and usefulness of any further legal action against Harehatch Sheeplands beyond the injunctive relief that Wokingham had already obtained. However, the hawkish approach of the planning and legal officers prevailed, and we now know it is the differences of opinion between councillors and officers which the original redactions were meant to be kept secret, not the protection of personal data, which the Leader of the Council misleadingly stated at last month's Executive meeting. Wokingham's approach to legal proceedings was heavily criticised by the Court of Appeal's Criminal Division, including Wokingham's attitude towards POCA, the Proceeds of Crime Act. As Harehatch now seeks to rebuild its business lawfully, it is surely incumbent upon Wokingham to act and be seen to act fairly and justly in determining any and every Harehatch planning application. My question, Chairman, what changes of staff and process does Wokingham believe are now necessary in order to demonstrate the openness and the transparency of our council's operation, which the Chief Executive believes are central to Wokingham's work for its council taxpayers?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Meadowcroft. I am, however, curious why you have asked this question, given your 90-minute meeting with the Leader, Chief Executive and Monitoring Officer when the same question was covered. For the record, I would repeat that there's no changes to staff are necessary. As you know, it was a key finding of the independent Lingard report that, and I quote, the suggestion of unprofessional conduct on the part of WBC officers in this case is unfounded. With regards to the process and procedures, the planning services has taken on board the lessons from the Lingard report as they would from any other service review. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do. I find some aspects of your answer somewhat patronising, but I will nevertheless ask a supplementary question, because, in fact, since that last meeting, 90-minute meeting with the Chief Executive and Mr. Moulton and Mr. Halsall, we have not received any notification from them. However, my question, how are you going to demonstrate to the borough's residents and businesses what actions you are going to take which will prove that something, anything, has been learned from the shambles of the Hare Hatch case to ensure that fairness and justice is undoubtedly done and undoubtedly be seen to be done?
Mr. Meadowcroft, as you know, I'm answering these questions in the absence of the Leader of the Council. It makes it difficult for me to commit him. So I would suggest that the best way is that your question is submitted to him when he returns for his vacation on Monday, and he will give you a written answer.
Did he have notice of the first question?
Yes, he has seen the first question.
I see. And he left no indication as to his opinion?
Sorry?
He left no indication of his response?
To the first question.
Yes, or have you read his first
This
response?
first question, this is a response from him basically on the first question. I'm a bit of a carrier pigeon here because I can't commit him to making any promises because I'm acting as his deputy, and when he comes back he will answer your question by letter. Okay?
Okay, I would have hoped that it would be a full council view rather than an individual's view as to what is going to happen as a result. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next question, if we can move on. Members' question time. And the first question is being asked by Paul Fishwick.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I understand that Client Earth has written to 100 English local authorities that are developing a local plan, including Wokingham Borough Council, to explain how they intend to respond to the national target of net zero by 2050. Each authority must give a credible path to achieving net zero emissions by setting robust carbon reduction targets and integrating them throughout the local plan. A deadline date to respond of the 28th of October 2019 has been given, and any plan that fails to demonstrate consistency with robust local targets will be unlawful and at risk of legal challenge. What has Wokingham Borough Council submitted to Client Earth? Thank you.
Okay, I see your questions to Gregor. Unfortunately, he's away with his family at the moment, so his deputy is here to answer. Would you like to?
Thank you, Paul, for your question. I'm here. You'll remember that this council declared climate emergency in July and that we've pledged for the borough to become carbon neutral by 2030. So we're treating this extremely seriously. So we're currently developing a baseline carbon footprint and an action plan to progress towards becoming carbon neutral, including both the council's own operations and influencing the actions of others. This baseline information action plan will go to the council meeting in January for consideration. When it comes to the local plan, we're currently reviewing it, updating policies in line with planning legislation to ensure the plan makes the fullest possible contribution to a transition to a low carbon economy. The draft vision and objectives for strategic planning will have a strong focus on sustainability, and that will go to executive late November with a further update in January. This will allow us to align our carbon reduction targets with the local plan's policy framework. And the answer we've given Client Earth is paraphrasing the answer I've given to you now. And we have also requested feedback from Client Earth on the local plan when it's published in the new year. And I'm happy for officers to forward you the response that we gave to Client Earth, if that would be helpful.
Thank you, Paul. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do, thank you. And it would be very nice to receive the response, and thank you for your response. It's pleasing actually to note that Wokingham Borough have responded by the deadline set by Client Earth. And I understand the difficulties in providing all this information that they require whilst you're still developing both plans, not only the local plan, but also our our climate change action plan as well, which is still in the process of being finalised. So what steps are the Borough Council going to do to try and satisfy Client Earth in that process up to when you've got everything finalised?
I don't have the details of that, so I'll have to come back to you, Paul.
Thank you. Next question is Rachel Shepherd-Debay. Again, Rachel, you've asked the question of Gregor, and okay, so you'll get.
If we're actually acting on climate change emergency and not just saying we are, then which council buildings are we putting solar panels on, and when will they be installed?
Thank you for your question, Rochelle. So at this moment, the Council's energy team, they're undertaking a detailed assessment of our whole property portfolio in relation to energy efficient updates and renewable energy technology, and this includes solar panels. This is so we can identify those technologies which are the most appropriate. We'll then prioritise to ensure that the measures and properties which can deliver the best carbon reductions are implemented first, and commence a rolling programme across all the Council's properties. As I'm sure you'll agree, we're in challenging economic circumstances, so it's important we make our commitment to invest in energy-saving measures as effective as possible and deliver the greatest impact. And I know we want things to happen quicker than they can always do, but we want a considered and evidence-based response, and that long-term response.
Do you have a supplementary?
Well, I can say that the Parish Council, Winnersh Parish Council, has put solar panels on, and they are generating electricity. I've done that same thing on my own house. Now, it would seem that we will save money in the process by reducing our electric bills and also reducing carbon output. So it would be very simple to put solar panels on, at least on Chute End for sure, because we use an awful lot of electricity here, and it will reduce our bills as well. So when will that happen?
Well, the Council's energy team will inform us when they've made all their assessments, and we'll keep you up to date, Rochelle.
Just to add to that, I just had it whispered in my ear. We've already started, and we've put solar panels on some of the buildings in the town centre. So we're starting as we mean to carry on. So thank you. Thank you, Lindsay. Sorry about that, Lindsay. You've got a question.
Yes. Before I start the question, there's clarity so that you know what I was using my information. It's from the Community Safety Partnership. It covered the figures for July 17 to June 18, which was 741, and for July 18 to June 19 at 1148, and that's where I got my figures from, so I shall read my question. There has been a significant increase in the number of fly tipping events in the recent past. My understanding is now exceeds 1,100 such events, that's that July-June 19. Can you advise what the cost to the council has been associated with clearing these fly tipping incidents?
Thank you, Lindsay. I thought you were looking over there.
I was wondering where it was going to come from for a minute. I did let Democratic Services know, so yeah. I hope you got the right times, the dates.
I've got some figures as well. I'll come to that in a minute. But as a responsible council, I'd like to keep our beautiful borough looking beautiful by taking positive action to prevent and eradicate fly tipping. But this will inevitably be at a cost. And I'm happy to advise the costs that we've incurred. During 2018-19, there were 1,117 incidents of fly tipping reported to the council, and this is an average of about 93 per month, an average. The cost of collecting these fly tips was £103,000, with a further £42,000 being spent on disposing the waste. Therefore, the total cost for the year was £145,000. Within the first 6 months of this year, which is 2019-20, incidents of fly tipping have reduced to an average of 71 incidents per month. Costs for this year have been £43,000 for collection and £18,000 for disposal, making a total cost of clearing fly tipping of about £61,000. 61,000. Just to go back to your figures, I've got a figure for 2016-17 was 857, which was about 71 average per month, and then 2017-18 was 747 per month, which is about 62 incidents per month on average, and then flight for this year, I already quoted that to you already. Whilst I'm pleased to see that our efforts this year to combat fly tipping are already having a positive effect upon the number of incidents being reported to us, we are committed to doing more to further reduce the impact of fly tipping on the lives of our residents. We have a comprehensive action plan in place now, and Mark Redfern is steering that one, to make improvements in how we respond to fly tipping, and more importantly, how we can prevent it happening in the first place. You will have seen the recent good news about how we are checking local businesses to make sure that they have the correct waste disposal arrangements in place. And very soon we will be launching our Countryside Watch initiative to work with the local communities to deter fly tipping in the areas.
Do you have a supplementary question?
Reason for asking the question was the concern when I'm using the council's figures here of the increase. The exact levels does seem to be 700, 800, 900, 1,000. I was also told that it was a large number in the first 3 or 4 months of this year. January to March to April was a very busy time, and it's come down slightly since, is the message I've received. My concern is that we have now got, and it's not just unique to here, it's across the country, we have got a significant cost. I don't know where it exactly occurs in the budget, so I think there does need to be a budget line for this, because it's not going to go away, unfortunately. Do we have a handle on what is causing the change in the level of fly tipping that's been occurring? Because it has certainly been going up over the years, and it's higher now than it was a few years ago. And I'd like to understand how we can understand. One area of concern to me has been the introduction of the charges for DIY waste. And I would like to understand that if within those figures, whether there's been any impact of charging for residents to put their waste in, because I have been told that a lot of the fly tipping is from what would be residents. It's relatively small parts of waste, but it's fly tipped and dumped.
So your question,
big stuff.
Lindsay?
So that's my question.
Your question. Okay.
Bit convoluted, sorry.
Lindsay, I totally share your concerns, and that is the real reason why we have taken action to put an action plan in place to identify the sort of things that you've been talking about only recently. And, you know, these fly tipping vary from area to area. And like I quoted the figures, 2016-17, we didn't have those charges in place. There were 71 per month. 2017-18, it was dropped down to 62. Fly tips, yeah. and 93, 2018, 19, and it's a possibility that perhaps charges may, it's human nature, I think, to say, why should I pay? And if I can at night drop it somewhere in a country lane. But that's not an excuse for them to do that. We're going to be very, very active in pursuing these people that are fly tipping, and there's an action plan in place to actually monitor that.
My group's more than willing to help because this is quite a significant cost and problem, not just in the cost terms, but also the environment and disruption to residents across the borough. So we are more than happy to work together if you want to put a working group together, because I think this probably does need one to be taken forward. Thank you.
Okay, Lindsay, we welcome that collaborative approach to this. It's not a PR stunt, we really are concerned about it, and it's a serious issue, and you will be involved in that. I will speak to Parry afterwards, and we will invite you to come along when it's being presented to us by the officers. Thank you. Wayne.
Could I just add something? We've just arranged to do a clean-up on the A329M of a very large amount of fly-tipped tyres. A lot of the fly tipping, certainly highways come across, isn't domestic waste. It's business waste that is either picked up by fly-by-night operators that don't have waste operating licences and are trying to do jobs on the cheap and that sort of thing. So we've got an arrangement which has just been approved to do some more clean-up on the A329M on the embankments, which will require a lane closure, but will be done in November sometime. So we're very, very keen to remove as much fly tipping as we can, because certainly my view is the more fly tipping we get rid of, the less likely people are to tip it, and the more people that we publicise and being caught for fly tipping, the less likely other people are to follow them. And if we're really clear with the residents about the fact you need a waste carrier's licence in order to take waste away, and they shouldn't be giving waste to any passing person with a white van, then, and that they are liable for their waste rather than the actual person who's tipping it, the more likely we are that people won't do fly tipping.
Yeah, no, I think there's just a couple of things to add, Lindsay. I think one of the biggest areas is with skip collection. Now, skip companies are getting super forensic on what's going in skips. And, you can get a skip a 6-yard skip for £246 by Collards. I know that because I've got one on my drive. But, exactly, yeah. But I close my gates at night. But what you're seeing is plasterboard, paint, and other areas. And what we're noticing, and I think where we can all help the borough, is some of these people that are dropping waste, and we have a big problem in Ruscombe on one particular lane, they're dropping waste, but they're leaving the details of where the job was. So we've just had a situation in Hurst where whoever dropped it must be stupid, but the details of the person where the job was where the new bathroom was being installed. So that is being pursued, as you can imagine, via the appropriate channels. But I think one of the biggest issues is domestic trade waste. So not so much individuals, this is companies knowing just how much and how expensive it is to get rid of those. And most people don't realise that plasterboard you can't put in a skip, but you can't. We know about paint, but things like plasterboard, most of us don't realise you can't put it in a skip, and it costs you about 3 times the amount if you fill a skip with plasterboard.
Thank you. I think that confirms, Lindsay, we're very much on the case with this. Thank you. Okay, Caroline Smith. It's all right. Good evening.
Incentives to increase footfall to the town, especially since the near completion of the regeneration and also to encourage new retailers. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. The Council has invested significantly in Wokingham's future and has already had phenomenal success in attracting new businesses to the town, with the regeneration flagged as a key factor in why the Sunday Times named Wokingham as one of the country's most thriving communities this month, and I hope that you saw that article. Great. Okay. The last year has been seen a fantastic range of national and independent stores opening, including businesses like Waterstones, Gales, Oliver Bonus, Neon Sheep, The Blue Orchid, Bakery, Leafy Elephant, at Peach Place, to name just a few. Feedback from residents about the new businesses has been very positive, with new tenants also reporting positive trading conditions, demonstrating that there is footfall in the town centre and that interest continues to grow from new people coming to Wokingham, and I've certainly seen that when I've been going around. But the council recognises that whilst a great range of shops and businesses is an important part of increasing footfall, a town centre also needs to offer that little bit more, with things to do and reasons for people to visit the town centre also. That's why facilities such as new cafes, the park and the play area, the cinema, the hotel and the carnival offer with its clip and climb, the soft play and the extended community uses are also so absolutely vital. They're the types of experiences that you simply can't replicate online, and they continue to draw people to the town centres. This is also why we've spent a lot of time and effort in designing our new spaces at Elmsfield and also Peach Place to make them the perfect location for existing and new events to bring the community together. In addition to being used for existing events like the forthcoming Winter Carnival, we're also running some trial sessions for free entertainment in Peach Place over the coming weeks to help promote the town centre and encourage new footfall to the town. Alongside this, we'll continue to liaise closely with the town council and joint fund the Love Wokingham marketing work to help promote the town centre and the businesses, and market Wokingham as a great destination to visit. By regenerating the town centre, we've put in place the right infrastructure to enable Wokingham to continue to thrive. And it doesn't stop there, as we'll continue to review and support the town, working with our residents and with our businesses to ensure that Wokingham achieves the success it deserves, both now and long into the future.
Caroline, do you have a supplementary question?
Sort of. I was going to say that all sounds very wonderful, but there are places closing down as well. And so I was thinking about marketing.
As I said in my answer before, we are working very closely with the town council as well around marketing, and we're working with the existing businesses as well to help support them. In terms of businesses closing down, one of the businesses that is closing down at the moment is part of a very large chain who have been having major difficulties, which is very, very well known. But there are a lot of businesses clamouring to come to Wokingham. They see what other businesses have come here, and they want to be in close proximity to those. It is really exciting, the kind of people that have been approaching us in the regeneration team, because they have seen what is going on here, and they think it's very, very positive. So I'm not downbeat. I'm really excited about what's going on here, and I think we all should be, and be celebrating the success of the regeneration of Wokingham.
Thank you. Okay, that's the time up, but I think the questions are important to answer, so I'm going to extend this question time if nobody's got any objection. No? No? Okay, Andrew.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everybody. At the time of the budget last February, the then leader of the council said that whilst there was a predicted overspend in the children's services area of £1.3 million for the 2019-20 financial year budget year, they were confident that the council would be able to bring down this figure. I note that a number of areas have been identified for investigation, and action to try to reduce this overspend is underway. Is the Executive Member for Finance also confident that the overspend will be reduced?
I think it's important that I pass you to the Executive Member responsible for Children's Services, who will answer your question, if you don't mind.
Thank you for your question. Budget pressures across children's services are being driven by increasing demand and complexity of cases. Higher than anticipated spend on expensive residential and semi-independent placements, alongside more complex legal proceedings, have been needed to keep our children and young people safe. So just to give you an example, the average cost of a residential placement made in the last quarter has been in excess of £6,000 per week. When compared to around £4,000 at the same time last year, that means an increase in costs of £100,000 for just one child placed in residential care over the course of a year. The other issue is the home-to-school transport, where we have to ensure that children with special needs and education have access to appropriate facilities. And if they can't be provided locally, we have to pay for them to go elsewhere. A robust review of spend and budget decisions continues to be a key priority, and significant work under the governance of the Continuous Improvement Programme is being driven forward to maximise opportunities to reduce and contain budget pressures. However, the level of increasing demand and complexity is such that we can't really reduce the cost. It's a statutory service after all. So unlike other departments, if the costs are too high, we can say we are not doing it. But it's a statutory service and we can't. And we have a duty to these children and young people to ensure that they are safe and that they get the education and care which they are entitled to. So I can't really give you a better answer than that. Do you have a supplementary?
I do, but thank you very much for that answer, because I do appreciate that this is an incredibly complex area. It's an area in which you quite rightly say that there's a lot of non-discretionary expenditure where costs can be extremely volatile and unpredictable. And I appreciate all of that. And the specific cases that you cited, in your answer. So thank you very much, for that. I'm still wondering, nevertheless, okay, are there any lessons at all? And this is not meant as a criticism at all. It's a learning exercise. Are there any lessons, that have been learned from this past year's experience that can feed into this year's budget planning process, specifically, of course, with children's services?
Well, it's not a question of learning any lessons. We just have to try and cope with what is coming our way. What we are doing, however, is to try and reduce transport costs by now having another, or very soon, within the 6 months period, another 50 places at Addington. We are also in the process of negotiating building another Addington, which would give us another 175 places. We need to look at the interim staff we are using, for example, and we are planning to reduce the cost by about 6% within the next couple of months. Having said that, we have to ensure we have properly trained social workers, especially for the more serious cases. And as you know from last night, nobody should have more than 15 cases because it's not safe. I just want to give you another example of how it works. Last year we had, this year we have 109 children in care. That's an increase of 41% compared to March 2017. We can't foresee these things. So we have to work with what we have and do our very best, because it is our duty to ensure the children are being kept safe.
Thank you. I think the true answer is that we're building 13,000 homes in the borough. 35% of those homes are affordable. They attract young families, and with young families come children. And of course, that will give us a different profile as to what we probably had in the past. But one thing you can be sure, we will not be dropping the service. We may be coming back to you and putting the price up, but we will not be dropping the service, which I think is really important. Stephen Conway.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to ask the question that you can see in this supplementary list of questions. The council, and therefore the local council taxpayer, is faced with a significant bill thanks to the large number of appeals that major developers are submitting when their applications are refused, as we can see from the council's executive agenda. Will the executive support a cross-party approach to government to secure a rebalancing of the planning system to limit the ability of large developers to submit repeated appeals that they have the money to sustain, but which cost the council a great deal in legal fees?
Evening, Stephen. I'm sure you know my profile by now, but I do have cross-party engagement for the local plan that I run and what I'm running at the moment. But I support cross-party approach to government to secure a rebalancing of the planning system, to limit the ability of large developers to submit repeated appeals. We've got one that's ended today in Johnson Drive, and that's 3 times that's gone through the appeal process. And we can add this to our substantial list of lobbying of government overtaken over the last few years. As you know, the Council is committed to robustly defending its position at appeal with the approach, but it is costly. The immediate problem is the number of speculative appeals, and I have it on good authority that I think we're probably at a record level for Wokingham. And I can go into more details if you want about certain areas, but we've got some very big appeals going on, and the number of those appeals equates to about 750 homes. But I'm sure you'd agree we need to put our best foot forward, and we need to engage the best, and we need to get the best defence. And by all means, you know, cross-party, I have no issue with that. If anybody wants to come and talk about any of these appeals or give us any advice or help or in any engagement they want, I welcome that on all of the appeals. And if you want all the appeals, I can list them out tonight, or because I go through these on a weekly basis. Government ministers, although, have made it very clear to us that the way forward to prevent planning appeals is through having an up-to-date local plan. And it's why we're preparing that document, as you know, and that is a cross-party group that we run. While preparing this, it's important that we continue the best approach to defend unwanted development.
Do you have a supplementary, Stephen?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think I do. I welcome that response, first of all. I welcome your commitment to add this to our many issues on which we're lobbying government. I think what I'm hoping we might be able to get to is a position where we have some mechanism in place which encourages, if I can put it that way, major developers to go for negotiation rather than straight to appeal. I mean, they can afford repeated appeals, but this is putting an enormous cost on the council and therefore on the council taxpayer. If you are prepared, as I think you are, to go down this route of a cross-party approach to government on this, could you undertake to contact all of the other political groups on the council and invite them to join in this too? Because I think more clearly this is coming across as the council's view rather than the ruling group's view. I think that will help us a lot.
Yes, as I said, I think that, as you know, you now sit on the planning committee, and one of those that was refused by the planning committee is coming back to us next January. And if we applied that approach there, I don't know what answer we would have got different to one that the planning committee delivered on that evening, because it was, as you know, there was a lot of very interested residents. But yes, I mean, I think we would have to think through how we do that, because if the developer has gone through approach and it's been refused by the council or by the planning committee, I think we need to be very careful then inviting developers in for negotiation post a decision of the planning committee. So I think I welcome it, and I'm sure there are certain situations where we can do that, but I think we need to be very careful.
Thank you. Imogen Debate?
Hi everyone, good evening and thank you. Okay. On page 27 of this Thursday's executive agenda, I can see that there are potential supplementary estimates totalling 1.1 million due to be spent fighting planning appeals. I can see that the financial information being accounted for I cannot see the financial information being accounted for in either the tables at page 24 or any of the appendices. Please can you advise why this is not being accounted for in any of the directorates?
Okay, you got your book there. The supplementary estimate for 1.1 million is split across 3 financial years, and it's outlined on page 27, as you just pointed out.
Yes, it is, yep.
As recommendation 4. The Executive are asked to approve this increase in the budget for this financial year, which is £630,000.
Yes.
And note the additional pressure for the future years. The impact of future years will be considered at the budget when it comes to the Council next February.
Yes.
The table on number 20, page 29, if you'd like to turn to page 29.
Page 29, yep.
Okay, the table shows the current position for this financial year. It states that there's no material variances are to be expected in this area of customers and localities, the department in which planning is located. But at the note, there's a note on the bottom of the table that refers to the supplementary estimate again on page 31.
Yep.
It then goes on, if you would like to look at page 31, it goes on to include the impact of the supplementary estimate if approved on the general fund balances. So this means there will be at least 4 references to the supplementary estimate and how it is to be accounted for in 2019-2020. Okay. The revenue monitoring report, as you know, you will be aware, covers the financial year 19 to 1920, therefore only considers the financial impact of 2019-20, which is 630,000, as you will see on page 27. On the executive report, and not 1.1 million. Process is in the way the council, it is included in the MTPF process. In the usual way, this council will rise its appropriate budget for the future. So what we're saying is 630 in this year, which is shown in this paper, and next year and the following year, it's laid out very clearly on page 28, which is the final impact, okay, over the coming years.
That one only says 934 million, 0.934 million.
That is the total impact for the budget over that period. Okay?
Including children's services? Sorry.
Yeah. So that really talks about, on that paper, that actually talks about that there. Okay. I'm sorry you have to look for it, but...
Is there any thought about making these tables more easier to read? But certainly on that page you've got 0.934 million of the current financial year.
I tried to make the budget as simple as possible, and last night we had our first overview and scrutiny review of the budget with all the members from the different parties, and I think everybody appreciated just how uncomplicated it was. But there are some things you cannot simplify anymore, unfortunately.
No, okay.
Do you have a supplementary question?
No, I think that's probably answered it, I think.
Thank you very much. And then we'll get your last question in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Rachel Bishop first. Thank you.
Good evening. My question is about page 25. There's a prediction on page 25 that there'll be additional savings on debt management costs due to delayed borrowing. As we know, the Public Work Loan Board costs have increased for future loans by 1 percentage point, which means 55% increased debt service costs. Does the recent increase in the loan board rates change its assessment of saving due to deferred borrowing?
The simple answer to that is no. And any saving due to deferred borrowing is because the Council's Treasury team has not borrowed as soon as it originally planned. This saving is unaffected by the rate change. With regards to the rate change, the budget for debt management costs was set around this time last year, when the rates were similar to what they are today, and are currently changing, and we are currently charging with the rates with the increase. So any impact's likely to be very limited. The Council's Treasury team always consider other sources of finances, as well as the Public Loans Board when drawing down borrowings. Any borrowings will be taken when they are needed, and it will be assessed at that time whether it's prudent and sustainable and affordable prior to any loan arrangements being entered into. So simply, we borrowed this money at a point where the rates were quite high, the rates have fallen away, the rates have come back up to just about where we borrowed the money, so there is no impact on our current borrowings. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, super, thanks. The rise in the loan board rates is ostensibly to deter councils from investing in risky commercial property assets. Which of the following does the council think will be the consequence of the Treasury's increase in the rates? A, increases in interest rates to councils from external lenders to reflect a reassessment of risk in borrowing to invest in commercial property, and or B, decreases in capital values of commercial property assets coupled with long-term downward pressure on rents.
If I knew that, I'd be a banker. Okay. I've really got no idea. Absolutely, I can't answer your question. I'm not qualified. It would be a guess, simply be a guess. The only thing I would say is our investment portfolio is varied, and we obviously are committing to building a large number of houses. And if we felt commercial properties are no longer viable, we would just move into building houses, because my experience is houses don't go out of fashion. If you don't sell them, you can rent them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, if we can move on. I'm sorry I extended that by about 20 minutes, but I thought it was important everybody who came along could ask their questions. Okay, so we now move on to the revenue report, which is on page, I'm sure I'll find it in a moment. Page 23, yeah, page 23. This is basically, people, thank you. This is basically how we update where we are, if you like. It's our financial scoreboard. As you see, there are certain pressures which are around children's services and also fighting appeals. I was asked by a member of the press why I felt we could spend all this money on appeals, and my response was, well, we did go to consultation and 47,000 residents told us they'd like us to do it, and we've had 4 petitions signed by 10,000 residents, so I think that's quite a mandate. So, there's nothing really, unless there's any questions. Yes?
Would you like them one at a time or all together?
Do them all at one go, thank you.
Okay, first question, page 24.
Yep.
I'd like some clarity on what the one-off costs in the Chief Executive Department due to redundancy are about.
Okay.
And I would also like an answer on page 27 about the retention of counsel. I presume that's just that we're paying for a lawyer, it's not we're paying a retention fee in case we need one.
No. Okay, if I could deal with the first one first. The cost of £52,000 is a redundancy which is related to 21st century. It falls in chief executive area purely and simply because it's a director. Okay, so it's held in that area, but that is a reduction in cost. Okay. And with regards to the retention of paying a retainer, we have not committed to pay a retainer, although we are in negotiations with a fairly high-powered or high-flying lawyer to retain his service, but not on a paying, but on a case-by-case basis. Okay, so we obviously need a relationship with somebody who understands what's going on rather than rushing out to the market to try and find somebody to fight our cause. So we've picked who we consider to be a very successful lawyer, and he's got a junior and a junior and a senior junior that he will sit over, and they will take some of the cases as well, but he will oversee them. So it's not actually paying a retention rate. Any other questions? No? No? Okay. Okay, so I would like to commend this report to the executive. All those in favour, please show. That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay. Now I've got the same document because I know money is money, but we also have a capital monitoring report which monitors the capital spend of the borough. That capital is somewhat different to revenue because revenue gets decided on and spent on a monthly basis. Capital, we sit down at the beginning of each year, decide what big programs we're going for, what grants we can get. It's normally roads and such things, schools, all the infrastructure bits that go with it. So, as you can see, there's a list in Appendix B of Arborfield Relief Road, £22 million, Shinfield Relief Road, Tape Lane redevelopment, that's new social housing, Foundry College Referral Unit, enhanced accommodation, widening, and so basically it's very much the capital that the budget the council spends. Quite a lot of the capital spend we get comes from developers, and some of it comes from government grants if it's a major piece of road infrastructure. Are there any questions on that? No? Okay. All those in favour? Thank you. That is passed. Okay, so... Okay. Now, we have an article here on Peace Place.
I refer to the Local Government Act 1972, Schedule 12A, Part 2, Clause 9, which quotes, "Information is not exempt information if it relates to proposed development for which a local planning authority may grant planning permission pursuant to Regulation 3 of the Town and Country Planning General Acts, Regulations 1992. This particular agenda item deals with Peach Place. Peach Place is a Wokingham Borough Council development and something that went through the Wokingham Borough Council planning. And therefore, I do not believe it should be in Part 2. It should be in public domain."
I will have to take advice on that, Lindsay.
No issues of the paper, the figures, it's whether it's in public domain or not.
It talks about information, it's not if it relates to proposed development. It doesn't affect the decision that you've got in there. The only thing I believe that we would publish the information, it's in pink sheets. So I think it's right to go ahead and discuss the item. And we'll take legal advice tomorrow about whether that should be in the public domain. But I don't see that there's any difference in the
to assist? I assume that was Constitution Parts 3, 2, 12, 4. Anne?
Lindsay, obviously we respect your interpretation of the rules, but we would have to take legal advice. My concern is if we don't do this tonight, it actually delays us being able to rent the properties, which is a cost to the council. Now, I'm quite happy to sit here and say, well, if you want us to pull it for a month, that's fine, but it will involve it. I would just say to you, I'm quite prepared to speak to our solicitors tomorrow, speak to our legal people tomorrow, and if they tell us we can release the pink papers, get them to you first thing tomorrow.
I don't want to delay you making a decision. The issue is whether it's in or not in the public domain.
Okay.
It also, I hasten to say, impacts another issue that happened a little while ago. We called in the Peach Place issue of the relating to the 26 flats. That is a similar issue, and I will ask that that is looked at and reviewed, because I don't think we actually looked at the Local Government Act 1972 at that time, because we did a lot of call-in on it, if those who were on the council remember. And I would also like that minuted to be looked at, because there was a lot of information in there, and again, it's the same planning, it's our proposals, it's our planning, and this is the interpretation and the Constitution. And I think that that was something that should have been made available at the time. So that's another issue. Okay, but I don't have a problem you making a decision on that.
I was going to ask you if we can make the decision, and we'll take opinion tomorrow, legal opinion tomorrow, and if the situation is as you are portraying it, then obviously we give you the opportunity, we'll send those documents to you, and they'll be made available in the public domain, basically, if you're happy with that. Okay. Is everybody around the table happy with that? Okay. All right. Well, that's thank you very much. We'll take advice on that, but thank you for that, Lindsay. It just means that we can actually get the job done. So if you'd like to present your paper, Charlotte.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, for those who aren't aware of what this paper is about, it relates to the Council's development of Peach Place, and that includes Market Place, Peach Street, Rose Street and Rose Street Car Park. So in January 2015, it was agreed that the Executive would reevaluate these before the first occupation of residential units to see if they needed to be amended with any market changes that could have occurred during that period of time. With that in mind, a new viability study has been undertaken. And some of that data obviously is in part 2 of the papers which are presented to the Executive this evening. And as the Council is the developer, it cannot enter into an additional Section 106 agreement. So it was agreed that in lieu to make contributions, they would make contributions towards an off-site mitigations in line with other developers. I hope that everyone will agree with me that the development has been a positive contribution to the town centre and also to the wider community as well. And as well as being able to contribute in mitigation payments to the provision of the suitable alternative green space, it also contributes to the strategic assessment monitoring of the Thames Basin Heath Special Protection Area as well. And I will make a commitment, as the Chair has also this evening, that if we, after legal advice, are obliged to release the papers in page 2, in part 2, then we will do that as soon as we've got the advice to do that. And the recommendation is as noted on page 45.
Okay, is there anybody who wishes to say anything about this? I would just like to say it's nice to see key worker homes in the town centre. One of the struggles we have in Wokingham, house prices are so expensive, trying to get staff to work in key areas of the borough, it's very difficult, and so I welcome that. And it's nice to see that we've also reached a point with it where the viability we've done allows us also to make contributions to green spaces as well. So I'm quite happy to propose this paper. So everybody in favour of it? Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, Lindsay, for bearing with us.